Thank you. This was helpful. Let's move to our first panelist that will talk about Maximum Family Grant, Ms. Duran.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Senator Monning. I'm Myra Duran with California Latinas for Reproductive Justice, CLRJ. CLRJ is based in Los Angeles and works statewide to empower Latinas, our communities, and our families through community education, policy advocacy, and community-informed research. Much of our time is spent working with communities through California to identify issues critical to the improvement of Latinas and our families and ensuring reproductive justice. CLRJ is proud to be involved in the advocacy effort the maximum family grant rule in our CalWorks program for the past 3 years. The current MFG rule is outdated, ineffective, and frankly leads to more and deeper childhood poverty in California. It is the children in deep poverty who suffer the most under the current MFG rule, and California simply cannot afford policies that deny infants resources and drives families deeper into poverty. Studies show that children from poor families are much more likely to experience mental and physical health challenges as compared to their affluent counterparts. And infants born into poverty, and specifically those born into capped families, face increased risk of suffering homelessness and other hardships. As a Latina-focused organization based in Los Angeles, we cannot deny that the MFG rule is hurting Latino families in our community. With over 16,741 Latino children impacted by MFG across only 4 districts in LA County, it would be remiss for us to not see this as an injustice in our system. We simply cannot sit by any longer and allow the persistent deepening of childhood poverty. By relentlessly clinging to the current MFG rule, the state of California is not only just increasing poverty, but is creating greater challenges for our educational and healthcare systems. Children impacted by the cap end up in schools with the highest poverty rates, thereby creating more academic challenges and diminishing options in the future workforce. In addition to being detrimental to children, we must not neglect the very negative impact the MFG rule has on women's reproductive autonomy. The basic existence of the family cap in our Department of Social Services has forced CLRJ and other reproductive justice organizations to recognize that low-income families, mainly families and women of color, are not seen as a priority in our state. Mothers whose infants are subject to the MFG rule are forced to decide between disclosing personal and confidential medical information, such as having been raped or their use of contraception, or going without a basic need grant for their child. This is unacceptable. Family caps or child exclusionary policies like MFG should be seen for what they are: a form of population control that is rooted in racist, classist, and sexist beliefs that women who receive public benefits are irresponsible reproducers, bad mothers, and drains on society, and stem from a stereotype-driven theory that cash aid encourages poor women to have more children outside of marriage. California must steer away from its egregious history in the eugenics movement and that specifically targeted women of color, as exemplified most notably through the forced sterilizations of immigrant Mexican women at the LA County USC hospital in the 1970s, and most recently through the forced and coerced sterilization of women in the California prisons. By repealing this rule that limits women's ability to access basic necessities that is intrinsic to their right to decide when and how many children to have and to parent our children with dignity, California will be affirming core reproductive justice values. As reproductive justice advocates, CLRJ supports women's decisions around their reproductive lives and believes that they should have access to resources to raise a healthy family. The very presence of this policy in law exemplifies the violence inflicted on low-income women and women of color who are stripped of their autonomy to choose to parent. Public programs like CalWorks must not deny women their right to form a family. California has a long history of supporting a woman's personal decisions regarding her reproductive choices. This must be true for all women, no matter their income. While our communities may not know the term reproductive justice, they agree with this value, that everyone should be able to make the best reproductive decisions for themselves and their families. It is time for California to truly embody the values we already claim to hold dear. It's time to repeal the MFG rule and reestablish programs that promote long-term stability for California families. It is time for Californians to stand together in support of repealing a law we never wanted in the first place. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that very much. We'll move on to the second panelist, Mr. Harold Weston Center, on increase in grant levels.
There it goes. Thank you, Madam Chair, Senator Monning. Mike Harold again with the Western Center on Law and Poverty. I won't go over the same ground that Mr. Woolsey did. I think he did a very good job of laying out some of the basic issues. So let me just kind of talk a little bit more about where we're at in terms of grant levels in the CalWORKs program, what this really means on the ground. Our grant levels right now, virtually across the board at every income level, put families in CalWORKs who only get CalWORKs as their income level below the deep poverty level. That means they're getting less than 50% of the federal poverty amount. And we have been in front of this committee many times and heard a number of researchers document a whole host of negative outcomes that occur when we have children and families living in deep poverty. And so our current situation, even after these two reinstatements of the grant levels, and I think that is a better term of art, a one-person grant in the state of California right now is equal to about 35.6% of the federal poverty level. So we're not even close to 50%. The three-person grant right now is at about 42% of the federal poverty level. Again, significantly below the deep poverty level that we think is absolutely essential. But we've had a lot of discussion here earlier in the day about sanctions. We just heard about maximum family grant. And as your analysis notes, more than half the cases in the CalWORKs caseload have an ineligible family member, either an ineligible adult or an ineligible child. And when those persons are not counted into the grant level amount, then those grant levels go even lower. So that the grant level for a three-person family actually becomes the grant level of a two-person family. It's 33% of the federal poverty level, not 42% of the federal poverty level. And then in the situation where we have an excluded child and a mother or a father who's been sanctioned and is off the program, that grant level drops to 20% of the federal poverty level. That is the reality of our program, and it is impacting literally more than half the families that we are trying to serve. Now, one might ask, well, so hasn't it kind of always been this way? We've never really had grants that are anywhere close to the federal half the poverty level. Well, actually, no. If you go back just to 2005 under Governor Schwarzenegger, the 2005 grant levels in July of that year for a one-person family, $393 a month, higher than we currently pay in the program some 11 years later. For the three-person grant level of that year, $750 a month. So one grant level is at 49% of the federal poverty level, and the grants for a three-person household were at 56% of the federal poverty level. So it has not always been this way. We used to do better, and it wasn't that long ago that we were doing better. It's no accident or no surprise, I suppose, that the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities just issued a recent report that talked about the increase in deep poverty across states. California's number of families living in deep poverty has increased by 100,000 families since 1994-95. So all of this that we've heard in prior testimony about the number of families who are homeless and needing family stabilization and the crisis and the concerns is all being borne out in this data. It's really happening. It is getting worse, and it is up to us to address this and to reverse this trend. So we have a couple of recommendations for you. One, we need to set a floor in the CalWORKs grant program that no family size, for every family size, grant should never be below deep poverty ever again. That should be an absolute floor. That means every grant level has to be raised to at least 50% or above the federal poverty level. Second, we urge the legislature to set a goal of actually increasing the grants to a standard that would keep people in a decent, dignified status of living so that we don't have this epidemic of homelessness and family crisis that we're seeing in our programs. So what should that standard be? Well, we actually have such a standard in California law. It's called the Minimum Basic Standard of Adequate Care, kind of an appropriate name, better known as MBSAC. We use it within the CalWORKS program right now simply to determine eligibility, but we use it in other contexts, within the medical context, within child support, as a standard that we use for figuring out what, for example, should be spousal payments in the child support program. We would suggest to the legislature that the MBSAC be reborn, that it be now the standard that we should be striving towards so that we can actually get the grant levels back to where they used to be. Third, for us, is the legislature must look at eliminating the impact of exclusionary policies that we have adopted over many years. We just heard, I think, a very troubling statement around the maximum family grant, and we certainly concur that it is long past time for this policy to be repealed. We also urge the legislature to work with stakeholders, with the counties, with the department, to address the issues of sanctions within our program. We have incredible changes going on within the program. We don't have to accept high sanctions levels, and to hear that we may have as many as 11,000 additional families falling into sanctions in the next year and a half is deeply troubling to us. That's going the wrong direction. We want to see the number of families getting sanctioned going down. We support Mr. Mecca's proposal, for example, about streamlining subsidized employment programs. We'd like to see that become a more robust program so that more families get that kind of opportunity and aren't being put into sanctions status. And then I would also remind that we have a lot of families who are now hitting time limits, more and more families, because we reduced the federal time clock from 60 months that we can have families in to 48 months. So these are all examples of policies that the state can change that will increase family income and reduce the kind of family stress that we're seeing throughout the caseload right now. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Harold, help me, because I should have been taking notes sooner. Sanctions, return to the
60-month time clock,
time clock,
and repeal of the maximum family grant.
repeal MFG.
Those would be three exclusionary policies which we think would go a long way towards, again, all of those policies have the effect of dropping the income levels of those families below deep poverty.
I got that.
You got it.
Tell me on that. Give me the specific policies you recommended in terms of proactively increasing grant levels.
Set a floor of 50% of the federal poverty level for all grant sizes, for all family sizes. Second, establish a higher standard that we look to achieve to in the future. We would suggest the MBSAC, because it's an established program. We've had it in law for many decades. It's a good standard already there. We don't need to create a new one. So those are the two things on raising grants, and then we have three policy recommendations about stopping exclusionary policies.
Got it. I would be curious at some point if finance would be able or willing to comment about how you would budget around setting a floor. That's curious to me. So if you're not prepared to comment today, I'd like to have a conversation about that at some point in the future, just how you would view it and approach it. Not that you would, but if you were to, just I don't know if, you know, the way in which you approach budgeting, if setting a floor is even feasible for you in terms of the approach that you use. Any comments? I saw you lean in. Yes, Senator Bonnie.
Thank you. I know you have another presentation, I believe, but this is very helpful. And just a quick question, and then the MBSAC that's used for child support, is there a built-in COLA in that? Do you know?
It is subject to the CNI, so it gets increased each year as the CNI does.
And that's automatic? That doesn't?
It's by statute, I believe.
Thank you.
It's updated annually by the department.
Because that would be a good thing to include in these other recommendations as well.
And give me what the MBSAC acronym,
Minimum standard, a basic standard of adequate care.
got it, minimum basic standard of adequate care. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Harold, appreciate that. Last but not last, but the last topic under our, here, it's right here, I'm assuming that's. So, tell me your name. Okay, I'm sorry, I assumed you were somebody else. So, yeah, based on nothing, I just assumed you were the other name on my list. Mr. Harold, is Ms. Douglas going to talk about increasing grant levels?
Here with the prior witness to talk about the maximum family grant issue.
Got you. So would you mind if okay, let's just return to maximum family grant, and thanks for coming, Ms. Douglas.
Okay.
Whatever comment, first of all, don't be scared. You're going to do a better job than any of the guys there at the table, don't worry. Whatever comments you would like to provide us with regard to maximum family grant, we would appreciate it. And I'm assuming that you are a CalWORKS beneficiary? Yes, I am. Okay, great. So just go ahead.
So I had my daughter at 18, and I begged the surgeons to tie my tubes, and they told me you cannot get your tubes tied until you are 25 or have 3 children. So they told me to get on birth control. So I got on birth control. 6 months later, turned around that my birth control failed, and I was pregnant again. And I didn't find out soon enough to do anything about it. So I love my son dearly. I love him. He's the greatest thing in the whole world. But it's very hard. It's so hard for him being MFG. I can't tell you what I'm missing, like, with the money, because I've never had that put in my hand. But I can tell you so many things that $130 so odd dollars would go to so much more: diapers, clothes, shoes, potty chair, all type of different variety of things. Like, it's very hard being told, yes, you have another child, but we're not going to give you any assistance, any help really for it. We told you what you needed to do and you couldn't do it, so too bad, basically. It's really hard, and it's really frustrating, and it's really sad that my child was born automatically into poverty, like without any step out the door, like just immediately, straight off into poverty. We really need to get this repealed. Like, yes, it may have worked when it was put in place originally, but now it's very painful for the low-income women and families. It is, and that's all I really wanted to let you guys know.
Thank you very much for coming and being willing to tell your personal business,
Yes.
as people would say.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for coming and participating. We appreciate you. With that, let's see if Frank Mecca can follow that. Mr. Mecca, you're here to talk about the Housing Support Program.
Yes, and much has been said about the program already, so I won't go into too much detail other than to thank the legislature and the administration for the creation of the program, which has been absolutely vital. Given the huge increase in homelessness among CalWORKS families, you asked for the metric of how do we know. In Los Angeles, between 2008 and 2013, they had a 149% increase in homeless CalWORKS families, compared to a 15% increase over the same period for their entire CalWORKS caseload. So homeless families during the recession grew by 10 times the rate of all families on the CalWORKS program. And what's been probably predictable but problematic is that it's been mostly unrelenting even during the recovery. We get 4,000 applications for homeless assistance every month, and that's not moved at all. Even during the recovery, as things recovered, rents got higher. And so we have a persistent problem that over time, as grants increase and we would support the prior proposals, hopefully we'd have to use the program less. But in the meantime, the homelessness is undermining the goals of the program, because as it's really clear, if you don't know where you're sleeping tonight, it's really hard to figure out how you're going to get to work. The legislature and the administration have been generous with the program, and the Senate housing package, the bipartisan Senate housing package, includes an expansion of this program, and we appreciate that. So without any further ado, I'd like to basically turn it over to a recipient who can tell you his story. It's Chris Tunstall from Yolo County.
Thank you for coming today, Mr. Tunstall.
Like you said, my name's Chris. I was born in Yolo County. I was raised there. When I was a teen, a family member introduced me to drugs, methamphetamines particularly, and I continued to use them all through my life, up until recently. I've got 3 kids. I'm married. My wife is on the streets struggling with her own addiction. In September, I decided I didn't want to live that lifestyle anymore. I didn't want to do it. So I reached out and I got the housing support. Because of my wife's mental health issues, I couldn't really work. I was taking care of my kids. She's unable to take care of them herself. So it was, I lost job after job from basically absences because I had to leave. When we got the program paid for all of our moving costs, our rent, our PG&E, and that helped. That way I could make sure my kids could go to school. It made it easy for me to stay off drugs, because if I'm on the street, the tendency is going to be to go back and use. They paid for our furnishings, kids' beds, and different stuff. And while in that program, I've used other programs, the family stabilization, which they paid for me to get my high school diploma. I went and took the high set, which is basically, it's a high school equivalency. I passed it the first time that I went in and took it. So I could go to truck driving school, basically. They paid for my DOT drug test. They paid for my DOT physical. Because in order to go to the school, you have to have this stuff, because they don't want to teach you if you can't get those things.
That's right.
I'm currently involved with Child Welfare Services crossover program. Child Welfare Services has provided counseling for my children. For me, my wife even put her in residential treatment for a period. Our worker, she meets with us regularly. She's active. Like people I heard people asking questions earlier about how to find this stuff out. Yolo County, talk to them because they got it. She's very responsive. I call her, she calls me the same day, the next day, if she's not there. I go to meetings constantly. I'm in truck driving school. I'm scheduled to graduate in 2 weeks. I go to counseling two to 3 times a week. My kids all go to counseling. And like I said, I'll graduate the Western Pacific Truck School in 2 weeks. And that's being paid by another program, WIOA. And I couldn't have done any of this on the streets. I used the 16 days in the hotel room. I went and I found a place to live. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard, but it can be done. I got a job. I got my high school diploma. Amidst all the stuff where it seemed like my life was falling apart around me, I still did all this stuff, because of these programs. That's pretty much all I got.
May I ask you how old your children are?
5, 10, and 13.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your willingness to come. Senator Monty.
I just want to thank you for being here today, and while your testimony of the importance of these programs is helpful to us, I applaud your own perseverance in a road that obviously hasn't been easy. Your children should be very proud of you, and keep up the great work. Thank you.
And we appreciate hearing from a dad. Thank you very, very much.
Not every day that you hear from a dad in these kind of.
Last year,
I
you heard,
want you to give me a honk honk when we pass by you on the 5 when you graduate.
last year,
Mr. Mecca.
Last year you heard from a witness who was a domestic violence survivor.
Yes.
She couldn't come because she has a job. Not on the program anymore. Today you're hearing from someone who has a job lined up. And so this is humanitarian and necessary, but it's also what it takes to make the program work the way you intended. So the specifics of our augmentation request have been provided in the memo to you. We believe that we can get to almost serving 10,000 children, housing 10,000 children with the $15 million augmentation that we're requesting along with our co-sponsors, Californians for Safety and Justice.
And I think what's critical about Mr. Tunstall's testimony is the complement of supports and services that enveloped both you and your children.
I didn't have to ask for these things. They were there. I needed it, they were there. They asked me, what can I do to help? You know?
And this notion of housing first. I think, for me, Mr. Mecca's quote will be my quote of the hearing, that if you don't know where you're going to lay your head at night, how do you know how to get to work in the morning? I think that's critical.
Look at this. I live around the corner from 4th and Hope. It's the homeless shelter in Woodland. I live around the corner from there. I know many people that go to NA meetings and AA meetings that I go to that live there. They don't stay clean very long. They want to. They're people that I've had long conversations with that want to stay clean, that want to change their lives. But they're stuck going into homeless shelter. The homeless shelter over there, they drug test, you know, because it's a clean environment. So if they mess up, they've got nowhere to go. You know, it's got to be stable. You've got to get people stable.
Thank you. Appreciate you very much. Thank you.